Welcome to the Consultants Way podcast, your go-to resource for all things professional services consulting. Brought to you by McMahon & Ransford, a strategy consulting firm with over 30 years of experience helping B2B organizations achieve sustainable growth, and the Consultants Way, the leading comprehensive consultant development program. Hosted by Dean McMahon and Anthony Paluska, we share expert insights, firsthand experiences, and conversations with industry leaders on the topics that interest you most.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of their employer, company, or affiliated organizations.
Welcome back to the Consultants Way podcast. Anthony Paluska. Dean, good to see you again.
Hey, everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful week. And I want you to know that as we do this today, my suit today is not as wild and crazy as Anthony's.
There you go. And Ben Edwards is our guest today. Ben, you're the VP of Consulting and Sales and Partnership at CMAP Software. Provide a little bit of an introduction and welcome to the show.
I appreciate being here. Hello to everyone. As Anthony said, I have got a multifaceted role within a SaaS solution that serves embedded services organizations, professional services firms, and consulting organizations. My role is multi-geo, so UK, Europe, North America. It involves partnerships, so being part of different professional service communities. It involves sales, so there's a business development component, and leading the charge on our consulting vertical market expansion, which is going really, really well. So hoping to bring some good insights from that experience to you all today.
So Ben, do you get 4 different salaries?
That's right. Yeah, I do. Exactly. And we're private equity backed as well. So it means I've got 4 times as much as shares.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just an immense opportunity for you. Yes.
Right. Exactly.
They're all highly leveraged comp plans, though.
Yeah.
$1 down and everything else on opportunity. Yeah.
The problem is, and my boss will probably listen to this, is that he would argue they're all kind of meaningless roles anyway, so don't deserve anything, let alone 4 times.
Now, wait a minute. I just want a clarification. Are they meaningless because you have them, or are they meaningless in general?
Yeah, if anyone connects with me on LinkedIn afterwards and sees the slew of content that I put out about professional services, they will be in agreement that I'm sort of 90% memes, 10% seriousness. So that might be a fair comment.
Well, that's why we like you.
Yeah, that'll be a good blend for today's conversation. So we'll have a little bit of fun talking about it, and we'll be a little serious, but we'll cover right what's really interesting about where you sit, and we've had some conversations leading up to this was. You have your own professional services team within CMAP Software. You work in the consulting space, and so you see all these changing trends that are happening to all other professional services organizations. And I want to dive into all of those trends and how technology and everything is reshaping the landscape a little bit. But give us just a little bit more. What's the target market for you all? What size organization are you typically working with, so we can kind of frame the rest of the conversation?
So CMAP is a PSA solution, and that's an operations type solution for professional services teams that typically comes in when you reach a certain level of maturity where you can't fully manage all of your resourcing, all of your projects. So somewhere between 10 and 30 billable heads is usually a good starting point. And then it runs up to hundreds, if not, for us at least, our ICP will probably top out about 1,000 billable heads, but other PSAs will go beyond that. And the sort of typical pains and the typical types of firms that we'll be using us will be, we've got lots of projects on the go, but we don't necessarily know who should be working on what. We don't necessarily know if we priced the work effectively in the first place, and then when we're delivering it, is it on track? Is it on budget? I'm sure some of these things are going to be common to the challenges that the audience have today. And you're right, we're in a privileged position, and we have our own PS team. We sell into consultancies, and we sell into other types of professional service organizations as well. So it's like a 3-pronged approach to people-based businesses.
Right. And so you have customers that are both embedded professional services organizations and standalone pure play firms. Is that right?
You do. It's fair to say the majority will be boutique pure play consulting type firms. But we do have some larger organisations who have got embedded service organisations or versions of that professional services type team.
Yeah. So I'll start maybe with a big, broad question for you, and we'll talk about the topic that everybody wants to talk about at the moment, which is AI and the role that that's playing on things. So as you look across your client mix and maybe even your own professional services team, what are some of the big shifts that you're seeing in how service teams are built, managed, valued, all of the above, as AI plays a larger and larger role in being a delivery partner to everybody?
When we look at first a lot of our clients, the shape of the org hasn't fully transformed yet, but there's a shift from a classic pyramid to more of a diamond based shape where the base of that pyramid is being slightly eroded, and maybe you've got more budget for midweight or senior, and the actual delivery piece, which is typically fulfilled high utilization across the bottom, is being more done not just by AI but also automated technologies as well. In our own professional services team, we're doing something similar. So leveraging huge amounts of automated technologies to fulfill some of like the base functions. So an important component when a professional services team signs up to CMAP is moving the data from an existing vendor or lots of spreadsheets in Excel where it's typically stored into CMAP. So if we can automate things like that, then that means the people get to spend more time on value added type services, which is talking with the consulting firm or the ESO about how to best leverage our platform. It's more enjoyable for the team, it's more important and impactful to the client. And lots of our consulting clients will be doing something similar. Let's see what we can do from the base delivery piece, move that away, automate, and then your midweights and your more senior people can add more of a strategic perspective once the project's up and running.
Is this shift from a diamond to a pyramid, do you think, and I bet it's all over the board, but do you think it's happening intentionally by these organizations, or is it happening a little bit on accident? And the reason I ask is, about 10 years ago, we were working with a lot of embedded consulting organizations, and they were finding themselves more and more in this diamond model rather than a pyramid model, but they weren't doing it on purpose, right? They didn't have the plan to backfill all of the entry level or the lower band of the pyramid roles. And so they had this huge role deflation that was happening where they hire all these people and they were doing it we needed to be competitive for salaries. And because we're part of a large organization, we have these salary tier comp models. So we hire somebody as a manager, even though they're probably as good as a consultant, because we need to pay them to attract people. Or we're hiring for subject matter expertise, not for consulting expertise, or whatever. But they found themselves in this pyramid model. And then there was all this role deflation where they had to do all the work. This time around, at least it seems like the reason we're moving into this more diamond model is intentionally with a plan for how we're actually going to get the work done at the consultant level. But are you seeing it the same way? Are you seeing a mix out there of, okay, hey, we tripped and fell and now we're in a diamond model, or we're taking 3 or 4 very deliberate steps to get there?
When I think about the sub verticals that we see in consulting and professional services, tech consulting is the most explosive in terms of growth, revenue, headcount, margin. And obviously those types of firms, because they are either software aligned or they're about digital transformation, increasingly data and AI, they have that innate focus on leveraging technology inside of their firm. So tech consulting organizations, I think, are quite deliberate about it because they've already seen the power of automation, and that's actually some of the value that they deliver to their clients. More traditional consultancies, so strategy, management, maybe those that are in more established markets like financial services, insurance. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is a little bit more of an accidental component of it. But what's really interesting is we see all through the different levels of a consulting firm, from founder to mid-level to junior, the new obsession with technology and AI is accelerated, it continues to accelerate, and therefore, even if they are maybe serving a more traditional type of service or end market, their adoption is really fast paced, and therefore it might have started accidentally, but it's definitely becoming more deliberate.
Yeah, I sit on a committee of 8 or 9 firms, some of them quite big, and one of the big six, the partner from one of the big six, or the big four now. She was very clear on they're already eroding their junior positions, and if you roll the dice for 10 years, and I think that's what Anthony's saying a little bit about, they're not going to be able to backfill, create, develop. You have to be very deliberate, particularly if you're dealing with experts in a technology that don't even want to share their expertise with other people because that's their value. To them, that's their value. So yeah, we're on a train that could end up in a very strange place where we're not actually replenishing the and if you do the multi-generational thing, each generation has different capabilities and interest and dot dot dot. We have a real challenge 10 years from now.
What I find really interesting at the moment is I get told a lot from consulting firms. It's not something maybe I've experienced myself, but founders or leaders of those types of boutiques and ESOs will say one of our concerns is when we were coming up through the ranks, we did a hell of a lot of learning on the job. And actually, if you don't have that opportunity, where are you going to get some of those skills? Where are you going to get some of the soft skills? Where are you going to get some of the technical skills? And I think that's going to be a really interesting piece for more mid to long term, right? You're not going to feel that effect immediately, but I'll be keen to see what happens to that band that were coming through the ranks that maybe now don't have the same opportunities that those are already progressing.
Yeah, exactly. We're not due to the way consulting is delivered today, due to a lot of things, we're not able to reinforce the best habits, best practices. I mean, that's one reason we built what we built. But if we just look at the health of the industry, you have to. Quality is so important, right? And I already see us dissipating in our consistency across the industry. So it's a fun time. It's an interesting time, but it's and by the way, Ben, listening to your accent, are you from the Texas Panhandle?
That's right, exactly. So my 2 years in Atlanta have really given me that southern twang. Yeah,
yeah. I could have picked you up as a Georgian right away.
that's right. Yeah, go Bulldogs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at least you picked a winning team.
That's right. Yeah. Where I lived was right near Georgia Tech, which was an amazing university to be able to walk around and go see the games. But if I went to go and see like an SEC game, different level.
Yeah. Yeah, all the smart people are at Georgia Tech.
Right. That's why I walked around the perimeter. I was never
you didn't want them to. Yeah, I get it. You didn't have a ticket to get in. I get it.
Right.
You touched on this for a second, right? It was so whether intentional or not, we're in this diamond, and in the short term, good news is technology is able to fill the bottom of our pyramid, but it is changing our talent models a bit. It's changing the 5 to 10 year horizon of how we're going to develop new talent and move them up. But it's also changing the pressure and the expectations on our mid-level talent as well, because the nature of the work starts to change as more technology comes in. And so there's, right, you mentioned some of the soft skills, some of those expectations. Are you feeling some of that? Are you seeing some of that as well? Like how are the manager level, right, the manager and director level, how are they responding and reacting to all these big changes that are happening in the market right now?
We get some really good insights through different communities and also through our own platform to look at things like utilization, to look at where people are spending their time, whether that be on billable work, non-billable engagements. And over an extended period of time, let's say several years, that sort of mid layers utilization has like slowly dissipated, and the really senior people's is only increasing, which, although only marginal, sort of like starts making you think I wonder if that gap is increasing. I know from speaking to a number of our clients that if they're working on large engagements with huge firms, they need to see people coming into the business and delivering work almost inside the first couple of weeks, being really effective. So I guess the decision then comes: do you pay a little bit more and go for somebody who's going to be more experienced, and you know that you're going to be able to drive the utilization a little bit higher, or do you work with people on a lower salary who maybe going to be slightly less utilized, but maybe going to be more into the culture? I don't know. It's a really interesting point in time when you look at that sort of like multi-year process that we're observing.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a very strange thing from when I first became an executive in a big firm, right? And the junior people did all the work, and you might not even show up at the client. To today, where the partners are at the client all the time, and the junior people are not. And to your point, to Anthony's point, the middle level is very interesting because one, they're not getting the leverage they planned on getting 5 years ago when they joined. They're doing activities below the top of their license because the junior people aren't there to do them. And AI can't make up for all of that, right? Still, somebody's got to interview clients and do stuff. And so I think we've noticed the turnover there is different, right? More rapid. And then you have the senior. I just watched a firm on behalf of a client where they asked me to come in and help them through a strategy thing, but we weren't the firm, right? And man, it was a partner led project. I mean, it could have been a small firm. It was a giant firm, but the amount of senior people that had to be involved was amazing.
You know, another interesting thing, that's a really interesting question you've asked, and what's prompted me to think is I see a lot of founders who maybe have reached that mid level, maybe recognize they don't want to become a partner in a huge firm now. And actually, that's why you're seeing this proliferation of boutique consulting firms, because they actually think, well, I could do this by myself. And with private equity coming in and with strategic inquiries buying boutique firms, actually, they see it as a really good way to earn money as well by setting up by themselves and maybe getting to a point when they can sell back into the firm that they actually originally came from. Now, I don't get to meet everybody personally, unfortunately, these days, because in-person events and networking has gone down, but I meet hundreds of people virtually every year. And the average age of founders is relatively low. I see plenty of founders who are considerably younger than me that have built really successful several $1 million type professional services firms because they've got some really specific domain expertise. They reach that manager level, thought, I don't really fancy going all the way, climbing the slippery pole up to the top. I'll go and do it by myself, and they're forging their own path.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Also, that we've gathered some data that buyers are a little disillusioned with the bigger firms right now because of some of the talent issues, to be honest. And that leaves a really nice opening for specialty small firms that, as you said, have a good niche and can deliver high quality on that niche. Where when you deal with no offense to big firm, I grew up in big firm, but I mean, it's you don't know who you're going to get. You don't know yeah, they may not have done that kind of project before.
Yeah. So you mentioned this, and we can. You talk about kind of how professional services organizations and this explosion of boutique firms are out there, and part of that is for what seems like the first time in a long while, if not ever, there's been this influx of external capital into some of these professional services organizations where, right, it was hard to get a lot of funding for professional services firms. They were a lot more bootstrapped and self-funded, and that's how that goes. But now you're seeing more acquisitions happen, more funding happen, more things like that. So there seems to be just this market, not even from a customer's perspective, but just from a market's perspective, this change in how services and professional services and consulting expertise is being valued, and the stickiness of that revenue, even if it is lumpier than SaaS revenue. So with that as a little bit of a backdrop, you see a lot of these organizations that are in this space. You're also in a SaaS organization with a consulting organization. Are you also seeing this change in the perception of how services is being valued from a customer's perspective? Where before it was, I just want to buy the software and the services are there to just make it work. That's how the executives at the SaaS organizations would think. That's how a lot of customers would think. It was, don't get in the way, and I don't want to spend a lot of money. PS was always one of the
Don't
first things
get
to
in
get
the way.
discounted, right? Now there seems to be this just overall shift. Are you also seeing that either in your data or in your own firm as, hey, people are kind of realizing the value that services can provide the market?
Yeah. So you're right. So let's take it in turn. We're a SaaS
Yeah.
firm. We have a services component. Our clients are definitely seeing the value of a really well thought out and planned onboarding approach, which obviously involves people, and therefore that's what the professional services team and consulting team do. And we won't have to discount in the same way that when I started my career in SaaS 15 years ago, you're definitely right. There was that chasing of ARR and services would be left behind. Maybe we've got 15 years worth of really poorly implemented SaaS to thank for the fact that like people are finally recognizing that services is a really crucial component. If we then move on to our client base, the boutiques, no doubt that is why there's an explosion of firms that are between 10 and 100 billable heads, because those businesses that want a new solution, new data migration, new platforming, they want people not just with the technical capabilities that you would typically see in the SaaS vendor's own ESO, but they also want like that strategic advice, that insight into how other firms of a similar size or in a similar vertical have done that. And that's why the niching in that we see in boutiques is of real interest, because there's so many pro serve leaders who can build really interesting and well formed, good revenue type boutique firms by really sticking to a particular niche. So yeah, absolutely right. Now you're still going to get that whole, from a SaaS deal perspective, we'll get somewhere they're discounting services because the market seems to be coming back around to valuing ARR again over like margin and NRR. But I wouldn't be. Maybe we won't get to the same level that we did, over the last decade.
I think the oscillating of IRR valuation drivers, I think also depends a little bit on what percentage of invested capital is in late stage SaaS, where you don't have an option, the land grab's over, right? And what we see, and this I kind of hope this gets cut out of this discussion. No, but what we see is executives coming through those organizations in a rapid manner, not at the PS level, at the top level, because what they've all been trained on is the land grab. And now one day they wake up and they run a complex business. And they're not equipped to run a complex business. May not even have interest in running. They just want to do the land grab. That's what they know. That's what they've been told their whole career is,
And I've seen it myself in previous firms, not at CMAP, but earlier in my career. And to your point on the interest from private equity, I think even though consulting firms don't always have repeat revenue in terms of like it's not licensed, but lots have got retainers, lots have got long-standing clients where they're constantly getting new engagements, and they probably see that and think, okay, this is a really well embedded pro-serve firm who will continue to build pipeline and will continue to win work over an extended period of time. Lots of our clients are pretty profitable, and have gone beyond just like nice revenue for the founder that's a solid lifestyle business to actually really good operating profit, really good net profit EBITDA, and therefore become attractive to a private equity firm because it might be perceived as lower risk, but especially if you can.
Because PS pure plays can fund their own growth,
right?
And
exactly.
That's why the private equities that have specialized in those, and there are a lot of them now, they like that. And if you can get critical mass, right, put X and Y and Z together and get some people who really know how to run PS, our consulting firms, then yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. We have a very good friend that's done 4 now of put them together, make them better, sell them with private equity. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is that through some sort of like family office, or are they in the PE firm, or actually they're more of the operator?
They're the operator,
Right.
our friend, and he shops every deal to different PE firms, but ends up primarily with the same, PE firm. But yeah, he's done
Right.
really well. Done really well.
Right.
So right, you mentioned specialization and niche and kind of growing these firms and how a manager can step out of the large firm and can build their own organization. I'd love some thoughts you have both building it yourself, right, building this practice or with your team, but also some of your clients on, right, what are some of the best practices that you've observed recently on, okay, how do you become known in a market? How do you build a good repeatable go-to-market strategy? How do you get to that critical mass level from a go-to-market marketing positioning perspective? What have you seen work best there? What have you experienced yourself?
Yeah. The sophistication of a marketing or sales engine in a boutique has had to increase over the past couple of years, because being able to just dip into referrals, dip into your black book in a relatively flattish market has meant that you've had to go outside of your comfort zone. You can't just hire somebody in and they will bring X number of clients with them. I mean, you can, but that will only last so long. And lots of boutique pro-so firms have figured that piece out. And actually, if they can build more of a scalable sales and marketing machine, then they're not so reliant on it, and you're not going to get that same lumpiness that you alluded to. You can then grow potentially a little bit faster. The types of things that those firms are doing is types of things me and you do, Anthony. It's connecting with thought leaders within their industry. It's disseminating that content across multiple channels. It's doing outreach as well, which is maybe a little bit alien to some pro serve firms. Maybe sales has been a dirty word inside of some businesses, where you're a domain expert and you deliver fantastic work for your clients. We don't sell. Like that's what sleazy car sales type people do. And actually, no, actually there is a new way of selling that is through informing and engaging and personal outreach, and really you know successful professional services firms are doing that effectively rather than just relying on the black book and the referral network. I would say that that's the key thing that I've identified. And then there's some other smaller things that I've seen come about in some of the sub verticals. So in tech consulting, for instance, being able to leverage little bits of the SaaS playbooks, like driving online reviews, really pushing hard case studies and testimonials, and being able to publish those on platforms like G2, for instance, are driving leads, brand awareness, and your positioning. So those are some of the key things that I've seen.
Yeah, no, we see it the same way on a lot of that, and for a long time, right? We've been as an organization, as a consulting organization, but then also as a training business on this concept of right thought leadership and leading with ideas and concepts can actually is the easiest way. I mean, it's not easy, but it's the easiest kind of psychological hurdle to go through if you feel like sales is a dirty word in some way, right? And instead positioning yourself as an expert and a thought leader in that, and going to your market with new ideas, new concepts, right? That gives you this ability where everybody in the organization needs to have this commercial model mentality, so that we're all playing this role in helping to grow and expand our position and our brand associated with all of that. And I can't tell you how many organizations we've worked with over the years where like our key message that we've had to focus in on is everybody within the professional services team has a commercial role to play in that. And that doesn't mean you're the used car salesperson, but it does mean you're doing all this. And so now applying that at scale with, all the thought leadership and all the new avenues to get your expertise into the market is right. It does require different muscles if you haven't thought about it in that way before.
Here's one of the advantages pure play consultancies have over ESOs, is that everything they talk about is about their service. ESOs typically, if they're maybe part of like a SaaS or a software or another technology or something physical that gets sold, it's secondary from a brand and a marketing perspective, and it's more difficult to then shout about some of the great services that have been delivered on websites, on LinkedIn, and testimonials, in case studies, in videos, because the org that the ESO is part of is so typically focused on the product or the SaaS or software that they're selling. So I think that has also helped the pure plays compete maybe for revenue against ESOs, because they can more deliberately position themselves as the expert. Even if you were to technically compare the consulting team, actually it might be a really fair match, but they just don't have that. ESOs just have not got the same ability to vocalize that in the way that a pure play does.
Yeah, I think that we've seen the exact same thing. Again, most of our clients tend to be the ESOs and the technology, the person that owns the software. And so by definition, you should be able to look at those professional services organizations, right, in theory, and say, hey, they're the closest to the product. They know what it does. They know what it can't do. They know where it's headed. They should be the best fit for this. But more and more often, they're losing out to pure play standalone firms because they're just not talking to the market in the same way. So even though they actually have that same level of expertise, or maybe even more expertise on their product, they're not talking in terms that the customers understand. They're not expressing and positioning their expertise in the market. They're not doing all those things that the pure plays are doing, and they're losing business. And so the only way for them to keep up is stop kind of standing on your brand so much and instead embrace some of the playbook that the pure play system integrators are using to get market share. And then if you're using that too, and you have the actual technology within your organization to rely on, then you can start winning some of that business back. So, but very few have gone down that path of trying to deploy that. And it's complicated, right, in a more complex organization. So
what I found interesting about your latest report was that inside of those organizations, you're seeing an increased demand now for services teams to bolster some of that revenue and find new ways to have revenue streams. Do you feel like that? Sorry, I'm flipping it back on, like this is your podcast, but are you finding that that's like a significant driver now?
I think in a lot of those instances, the organization that's asking more of PS doesn't yet fully know what it wants from professional services. It just sees all these signals that say we're flattening out here and we're losing market share to some of the system integrators that are helping the end users make more of the decision about what technology to ultimately use at the end of an implementation, because they're leading with advice and assessments and some of that on the front. And so I think they're seeing some of this and they're saying PS ought to and need to play more of a role. I was talking to somebody else in the industry that had done a report on something similar to this. And one of the biggest things that when executives are polled about what they want their PS team to do differently, they say they want them to be more strategic and advisory. And they say, okay, well, who does that look like? And they name all the big players that you would think that are pure play consulting firms. But then they're not empowering that team to go and act in that way, right? They're still seen as a product attached extension of the business. And so I think it's all of the things that you mentioned, but I think the biggest challenge that we have at this point is we're wanting embedded PS teams to do more, but we haven't yet given them the freedom to act like the pure play firms in order to actually compete in that way. So it's a difficult situation for them to try and navigate as a PS leader right now. But yeah, we could obviously we could go.
We
talk
could
about
do this for like 8 days. So
yeah,
Ben,
yeah.
wonderful to have you. We're going to have you back. We find you for a person from the Panhandle, refreshing and intelligent. And even though you lived in Atlanta a couple of years, we're going to let that go. Just going to let that go. Okay.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Don't hold it against me.
No, not at all. Not at all. But listen, anything you want to say, just as a quick takeaway for the gobs of people that are so excited to see you today?
the work that you're doing with your platform, I think, is fantastic. And I think that if I was in a ESO or even a pure play consulting firm, and I was looking at the development of my team and spotting some of the gaps that existed, I think what you're building is the first digital version that I've come across. So I guess I should have plugged myself and CMAP again, but okay.
Well, we'll give you a chance to say two things.
Ben, we don't mind being plugged. Ben, I
Right.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
like all businesses, we have a board, we have numbers to make. So yeah, that didn't break our heart. But again,
Feel free to
in
plug
all
yourself and the work that you all are doing as well.
yeah. But in all seriousness, Ben, really a pleasure, just a real pleasure. And
Yeah, likewise.
and we'll see you again soon. So Anthony,
Yeah, sounds
anything
good.
before we wrap up?
No, Ben, unless you have something to tack on to the end of.
You want to say something about my mother, Ben? What do you want to?
I guess if anyone's got any good tips for when I'm out in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin, please connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know where I should be heading, because that's what in the North American market, that's where I'm going to be heading next.
Oh, I was born in Austin, and I lived in Dallas for 10 years. So just send me a note. Tell me what you want. I'll tell you where it is.
All right, sounds good. I will do.
Good. And I do encourage everybody, hey, if you're in Dallas, connect with Ben, but otherwise connect with them as well on LinkedIn. And otherwise, Ben might rival us in the amount of content that he is producing in a given week. It seems like every day there's something new and different. You get your own podcast. You have daily, if not multiple times a week, posts on trends and things that are happening in professional services that you should keep in mind if you're an embedded services organization or if you're a pure play firm. So some great thought.
No, wait a minute, Ben. Do you have puppets? Okay, we have puppets. So Ben, I'm not taking that.
I don't. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. And here's my thought though. What I found really interesting is if I'm somebody in your audience who is an ESO, being able to compare and contrast what the de facto competitors are doing from the pure play standpoint, I think would be really informing. And that's why, even though ESOs make up a smaller portion of our client base, I'm always looking at what they're doing, because you can compare and contrast them. You can learn from each other and you can see what's working, what's not working. I think by staying in your lane too often, you can then become your judgment can become clouded.
You become blindsided. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That was really good
Completely
advice.
Yeah, completely agree. I think we should all be looking across both of those, and not just necessarily if we're running a embedded services organization or a pure play firm, looking at only our competitors as those that look like us, because the other side of the aisle they have lots of things that they're doing that's causing them to be successful. And I think the perfect organizations are the blend of the skills from both sides. So I think that's a good thought. All right, Ben, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks,
Anthony. Thanks, Dean. See you all soon.
Hey, everybody, that Ben was super, just super, Anthony. And wow, sometimes, and world of knowledge, great guy for us to spend time, and we'll have him back on. And I want to dive into a couple of things he said. But first I want to say, it's just so nice to have somebody who's that high intellect, kick it back and forth jokes. So that was really nice. Yeah.
Yes, even the ones that probably didn't make the cut.
So for people watching now, that was literally the longest recording we've ever had, because we had so much to talk about, and I don't know how much will make the eventual real time.
Yeah. No, it was a good conversation, and I love what he left us with there, because it's a premise that, without explicitly saying it the way he did, we've been kind of on for a long time, which is, right, embedded services organizations always view their technology partners or technology competitors as their competitors, but so much can be learned from what the pure play consulting firms are doing in terms of how they go to market and how they position their expertise and how they focus on client outcomes and how they do all of these things. Right, a lot of the concepts that we've been on for a while on, right, idea selling and on right, just this concept of
content
being
marketing,
commercial and being content rich could help a lot of the embedded services organizations. And so it's, expand your view of your competitors or your network, and start to look at what some of these other organizations are doing. And yeah, that's a good
Yeah, it's very
gauge.
good. I thought he did that really well, and we'll have him back. So,
Yeah,
Anthony,
absolutely.
send us home.
Yep. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can actually check out a separate podcast where you can go and see Ben's, where we joined that and told a little bit of the story about Consultant's Way on his podcast, and we'll put a link to that in there. But if you want more from Dean and myself, you can find us on our YouTube channel or the Apple Podcast or Spotify. Give those a like, subscribe, and you can get all the latest episodes from us there. If you want to see more thought leadership and insights or connect with Dean or myself, you can do that best on our LinkedIn channels. And if you want to email the show with guest suggestions or other topics we should cover, that is podcast@consultantsway.com. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
See you soon.